Hello, I'm Tim Tokwe. Thank you for stopping by. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for checking in again. Today we are going to be going through the sewing process of this underbust corset. So if this is what you're interested in, you want to continue watching, and if you are yet to see the cutting process, I'm going to leave a link in the description box. So let's go straight into this tutorial. These are the patterns we drafted in our last video. So we already have them arranged together this way. You can see the center front, the middle front, and the side front. So I make sure to arrange them accordingly. You can see that I'm arranging them on the table. And I use the pattern to guide me so that I will know how to arrange them. So you want to do the same so that you don't get confused. I'm going to be stitching it together like this by 3/4 of an inch. And so when I'm done, I'm going to be placing the next one. I'm going to be stitching the next one. So what I'm going to do is to take each piece, go back to my machine, come back here and pick the next one so that I don't get it mixed up. You can see this one is looking like one is longer than the other. It's because it's a slanty curve, it's not a straight cut. So by the time I stitch it by the 3/4 of an inch allowance, you can see that it's going to rhyme, it's going to align. So when you are putting it together, you are going to put some, you're going to make sure that you have some excess at the upper part and the lower part evenly. Like arrange it evenly. Don't say you want to make it align at the tip there. Just make sure that you have some coming out at the upper part and the lower part. So I'm going to be stitching the next one to it, and I'm going to be doing the same thing to the lining. I can see that I arranged it in such a way that I have the upper part together and the lower part together so that I don't get it mixed up. So make sure you do that also. So now I'm going to be stitching them together. I'm going to be taking the center pattern for the center front to the side front. I'm going to be stitching those ones together and come back to pick the rest. So this is the back part also. Your pattern will just guide you on how to arrange it. So this is the center back and the side back, and I also have the lower part arranged accordingly. So now I'm going to be joining them together. I'm going to be joining the side back to the center back this way. I'm going to pin it together to join, and I'm also going to do the same thing to the other side and also to the lining. So this is the front part. I'm done joining them together. This is the lower part. So this is it on the wrong side. I can see that I've also gone ahead to press it down with my iron. I open up the allowance and press it down. And this is the back. I also open it up and press it down. So we are going to be joining the back to the front. So I'm going to be joining it this way. And I'm also going to be using 3/4 of an inch for this stitching, because we are going to be using this allowance, this stitching allowance, for our boning channel. So I'm going to be joining it to the side also by 3/4 of an inch. So I'm also going to pin it together on both sides and then join them together. So this is it. I already joined the front to the back, and you can see what it looks like. And I've also done the same thing to the lining. So these are the channels. We have 3/4 of an inch for the allowance. So this is what I'm going to be using for the channels. So I'm just going to go ahead now and stitch down one part of this allowance, because I just need one boning channel for on each part. So I'm going to be using the left side. So I'm going to pick the one on the left, and then I'm going to stitch it down. Then for this one, that is where I join the front to the back, I'm going to be stitching on both, because I'm going to be using both allowances for the boning channel. So I'm going to be creating 2 boning channels there at the sides and the second side also. So for this one that is facing for my back part, for the back part, I'm not going to be using the left side. I'm going to be using the one that is facing the zipper allowance. So the allowance, the stitch allowance that is facing the zipper allowance is where I'm going to be using for my boning channel. So now I'm going to go ahead now and stitch on each of these boning channel. The front part, I said I'm going to be using the one on the left. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch it. I'm going to be making sure that I stitch about 1/2 of an inch so that my boning can be able to sit in perfectly. So I'm done stitching all these boning channels. Remember, I didn't stitch on both sides. I only stitch on one, which is the left one. And for the center, I stitch on both sides. So this is what it looks like on the right side. I don't know if you can see it. So this is, I'm done fixing my boning channels. This is the upper part. You can see I can differentiate that because this upper part is kind of hollow and the lower part is just come down straight. So I'm going to be placing the lining on it this way. I'm going to be pinning the upper part together because we are going to be stitching it together. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin it all the way around. And then I'm going to be stitching it together by 1/2 inch. So I'm done stitching it together. I'm just going to trim off the excess this way. And then I'm going to be notching it all the way around. So I'm going to place it turn it towards me so that it can be easier for me to notch. So now I'm going to be opening it up to top stitch on it. So I'm going to make sure that the allowance is facing the lining area, and then I'm going to be top stitching on the lining all the way down. So I'm just going to make sure to open it up and top stitch. So I'm already done top stitching, and as you can see, I've also gone ahead to iron it. So now we are going to be fixing our boning channels. So I'm going to be using 2 types of boning for this corset. So I'm going to be using the plastic boning and the Reggiline bone. So these are the bonings. I have the Reggiline bone and the plastic bonings, and I'm going to be using both. So it's okay if you want to use the Reggiline bone, especially if you want it to be very comfortable. So you can use the Reggiline bone alone. So I'm going to be using both of them. So I'm going to measure each of the boning channel, and I'm going to make sure that my boning is about 3/4 inch shorter than these channels. So I'm going to measure each of the channel and create boning that is 3/4 inch shorter than this. So this is the back. I'm going to go ahead now and create it. So there's going to be a channel at this back part, but that I'm not going to be creating a channel for it. There's going to be a bone in there. I'm not going to create a channel for it. I'm going to be using the Reggiline bone. So I'm going to sew it directly on the fabric. So now I'm going to measure the stitching allowance, which is 3/4 inch at the center there. So I'm just going to make sure that all the way down. Then after the mark here, I'm going to be placing my Reggiline bone after the mark. This allowance, I'm going to be folding it in. So after that mark of the line, I'm going to be placing my Reggiline bone after the 3/4 inch allowance. So this is it. I'm trying to measure out what I'm going to have there, and I'm also going to be doing the same thing to the other side. So I'm going to be placing the Reggiline bone after the chalk mark, after the allowance there. So what I like to do to my Reggiline bone is to bend it this way so that I can straighten it. Although I'm also going to be pressing it down with the iron. So now I'm going to make sure that it's at the top, it's very close to the top. And then I'm going to be stitching on both sides. So there's a smooth side on both sides. So that's where I'm going to be stitching on. So if I stitch on the rough edge, the thread might start cutting. So I want to make sure that I stitch on the smooth parts on both sides. So before stitching down, I'm going to be using my lighter on both ends so as to take away the roughness so that it will not poke me. So I'm going to do that and then place it on it and be stitching. But before I stitch it together, I'm going to be putting my eyelet space, my eyelet spots where I'm going to be having my eyelets. So if I stitch on it before fixing my eyelets, if I should stitch the Reggiline bone before stitching my eyelet, I'm not going to be able to create the eyelet channel or the space for it. So in between this boning and the next channel is where I'm going to be fixing my eyelet space. That's where I'm going to be putting the space for the eyelet. So now I'm going to mark the space for the eyelet before fixing this bone. So I'm going to close this up together and then try to pin it together. So I'm going to be pinning it together here on the right side, and I'm going to be chalking it on the right side also. So I'm going to fix it in between the next boning channel. I'm going to finish very close to the boning channel there. So now I'm going to mark from the start. I'm going to mark 1/2 inch, and that will be where my first eyelet hole is going to be. And then I'm going to be marking from that point. I'm going to be marking 2 inches. So I'm going to create like a 2 inches interval. Then the next I'm going to be marking 2 inches. So the last one is not up to 2 inches. So I use 1 3/4 inch. So these are the four spots that I'm going to be placing my eyelet. So I'm not going to be showing the process of fixing the eyelet here. I'm going to be uploading another tutorial for that because I fix my eyelet manually. So I'm going to be uploading another tutorial for that. So now I'm just going to go ahead and open up my holes. So I already create all those holes for my eyelets. Then I'm going to be fixing the Reggie bone now. So now I'm going to place it where it's supposed to be and then fix it. So I'm done fixing it. You can see what it looks like on the right side and also on the wrong side. And I've done the same thing to the other side. So what we are going to be doing now is to fix the rest of the bonings. So I'm going to be using my lighter on both edge of the bonings for both the regular bone and the plastic boning. And like I said earlier, that I'm going to be using both the regular bone and the plastic bone on each of these channels. So this is me fixing the center one. So I'm placing the regular bone first. And when I'm done fixing it, I'm going to make sure that I push it to the tip, to the front here, like it's getting to the top, to the edge. Then I'm going to be placing the plastic boning on it. So the plastic boning does not really bend. So I just like using the cuff parts. Like I just like placing it this way. So I'm going to be placing it on the regular boning. The regular bone is at the down part and the plastic boning will be at the upper part. So I'm going to go ahead and fix for all the channels, plastic boning and regular bone. And like I said earlier, you can decide to use only regular bone and then probably use plastic boning for the back, but I decide to use both together. To the city streets, we began to feel the fire. So I'm done fixing boning to all the channels. Every channel I have boning there. So now what I have to do now is to close the lower part. So I'm going to be placing the lining this way just to stitch the lower part down. So this underbust corset, we have two types of it. We have another type that you don't have to close the two edges this way, like the upper part and the lower part. You don't have to close it. You just need to use your bias to tape them. But this one is the one I have on my thumbnail, has both the front and the upper part and the lower parts closed. So that's why I am doing, and this is what I am doing here. So because of this, I have to put this plastic bone in here so that this part can be open and I'll be able to use it to turn it out, because I have to close the upper part and the lower part. So I'm going to be stitching this lower part now. I'm done stitching it, so now I'm going to go ahead and notch the lower part. I'm going to notch it all the way around so as to make the curves to relax. So now I'm going to be turning it out to the right side and I'm going to be using the opening on the sides. So this is not something you can rush or something you can do in a hurry. So you have to really take your time to turn it out because of the bonings that we have there. So it's not going to be very smooth turning it out. So you have to do it gently and not rush it. So I'm done turning it out and I've also gone ahead to give it a good press. And so now I can go ahead and fix my eyelets. So I'm going to be pinning the sides together since I'm yet to close that part so that I can put the lining and the fabric in place. And so after pinning it, I can go ahead now and fix my eyelets. So as you can see, I already fixed the eyelet, and like I said, I fix it manually. So now I can close this end. So I'm going to be trimming off the excess. I'm going to trim some part of it off so that I can be able to fold it in conveniently. So now I'm going to be folding this part in this way, as you can see me do. So I'm going to be folding it towards the ridge line bone that we have there, such that the ridge line bone will be what we have at the edge. So that means I'm going to be folding this allowance underneath the ridge line bone, and I'm going to be doing the same thing with the lining, and I'm going to make sure that it's actually aligned at the edge. So I'm going to make sure to fold it in as neatly as possible, and I've also gone ahead to give it a good press. So you can see how smooth it looks on both sides. So now you have two options. It's either to top stitch on it or to use a glue. So I'm not going to be top stitching on it. You can actually top stitch on it if it's a ridge line bone, but I'm not doing that. I'm going to be using a glue. So I'm going to open it up this way and apply glue on both sides. So this glue has been working well for fabric. So I'm going to apply it on both sides and do the same thing to the other side. So I'm going to allow it to dry up a bit before pressing it together. So by the time I'm done here, that would have dried up a bit, and then I'm going to be pressing it together like this. So I'm going to make sure to press the edges together very well so that it can compress well. And so when I'm done pressing it together, I'm going to allow it to dry up a bit and then also give it a good press so that it can lay very flatly. So this is what we have for our underbust corset. I'm going to be gluing the second part too. So this is the rope I'm going to be using. This is the piece of fabric I'm going to be using for the rope. I have 2 inches here, and by the time I fold it together, it's going to have 1 inch. So I'm done fixing the rope, and I'm going to go ahead and lace my corset. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and also to subscribe to this channel if you are yet to do so. And you also want to turn on your notification bell so that you'll be the first to get notified each time I upload a new video. So I'm going to be uploading the video for how I fix the eyelets manually, like I said. So I want you to turn on your notification bell so that you get notified when I do this. See you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.